It's Chelsea,
It's Nina.
and you're in the Critics' Kingdom.
Yes. This week we're going to be reviewing another of the Zendaya, well, the only other Zendaya decom, Zapped.
Honestly, I'm shocked that she only did 2 for them, considering how many years that she was under the Disney,
the yoke.
Yeah.
I think she did do 2 television shows that I would think were like pretty successful. Like went into, I know Casey Undercover had like 3 seasons, I think.
Shake It Up, I think, also had like quite a few too.
Yeah, and if you like break it down and imagine like because I know Casey Undercover, they were like 22 episode seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you break it down to like years, like TV shows alone, you're looking at a solid 6 years of this girl's life at minimum. you know? So I guess like in that regard, if you add like another, like let's say another 6 months to a year for both decoms, you're looking at like, the teen years, essentially. Or like that like 11 to 18 stretch, which I think tracks fundamentally. This is all obviously speculation. But yeah, so this week we're reviewing Zapped, which came out in 2014 and I think was sort of at a midway point. I think it came out before Casey Undercover started or aired, but after Shake It Up had ended, or maybe towards the tail end of Shake It Up ending, and definitely like a solid, was it 3 or 4 years after what was the name of the last one that we just reviewed? There we go. The one that I despise. I have literally already removed it from like my brain's lexicon. But yeah, I guess with that, Chelsea, would you like to get into the review? Recap. The recap. One of those mornings, everyone.
Yes. So we start off by meeting Zendaya at a wedding, and she's playing a character named Zoe Stevens, and we see it's her mom is getting remarried, to this man, and he's a coach and a father of 3, and they're having, like a very nice wedding, and she's also playing the maid of honor as well as being obviously the bride's daughter. So it's very sweet. But then the next thing we know, this huge dog, Humphrey, comes and basically like gets water accidentally spilled on him, which causes a chain reaction of events where Zoe ends up getting completely covered in dirt and mud by Humphrey. So we then see that this is foreshadowing for how her life is about to be with these 3 men, these 3 stepbrothers she now has, and her new stepfather. And we meet them. We meet the eldest, who is Adam. He's like the captain of the basketball team. He's constantly rushing around. Like there's like no time for him to get anywhere. He's always like forgetting to wear his pants and all that kind of stuff. And then Ben is like the middle brother, and he's always dirty. Like he loves making messes. He's like at that age. And then their youngest brother, Zach, only cooks like disgusting foods. And
I think that's the other way around, though. I think the middle one likes to cook and eat, and the little one likes to, because he's like always in like the toilet and stuff with the dog, the baby.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Zach is the middle one. Yeah, and then
Zach
is the middle child. And yeah, he likes to cook disgusting food. And then Ben's always dirty. And yeah, so then she's just obviously, this is her first morning getting ready. She's about to go to a new school because now they're on, I guess, their side of town, not where she lived. And she's like, I can't deal with this. This is too much. I can't even use the bathroom alone. All the boys are constantly like in the bathroom with me. Like nobody respects my time. But she's like, fine, I'll just go to school and make it work. And she goes to school, and Adam is supposed to be introducing her around because they're around the same age and they're both in high school together, but he quickly disperses and leaves her alone to fend for herself. And then she just sees all these various groups of young, like teenage boys who are just like disgusting, like some who just clearly don't clean themselves properly, and they smell horrible. Then there's the other group who just like to fart on people. And then all like just the gamers who are just gaming in the corner, but all the guys like are just like of them like know how to react to her. Like they're just kind of indifferent and or mean, which is really weird, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, it
Um
doesn't make any sense. It's not how teenage boys behave.
no. But then she, loves her friend Rachel, who wears a lot of hats that look like Danny DeVito and Matilda. And she is, quickly her like new best friend because she was like, I'll show you to your classroom, because Zoe has no idea where she's going. Obviously, it's her first day. But Rachel accidentally leads her to the wrong part of the school. So she ends up meeting this brooding, young, dark haired boy named Jackson Kale, who is like, I'll show you to your room. And she was like, all right. So, they talk, and he's like, I understand your type. You probably look at your phone so much every day. And, you're clearly like that kind of girl. Or like, he basically does that whole thing where he's like, I know you, even though I've never met you before in your life. And she's flattered by this. But what she doesn't see is that Taylor, who is the dance captain, is seeing them from the side, and Taylor is pissed, to put it lightly. And Jackson ends up taking her to the right classroom. She goes to class, everything's fine. And then that afternoon, she preps to go to dance tryouts because she was on the dance team at her own school and they were about to go to state. So she's like a dancer, basically. So she goes to the tryouts, and this is where she meets Taylor, the dance captain, who already has it out for her, but she doesn't know that. And so Taylor's like, all of you suck, even though we haven't seen you dance. We have no room on the dance squad, so you guys can basically all just leave. But, we'll give you guys this little routine because I guess we have to be nice. And at that point, Zoe also sees that when Zach was making his little food creations that morning, he got some of them on her dance shoes. So her dance shoes are completely like ruined, but she's like, okay, I can pull this together. And so she does the dance actually better than everybody else because, in dancing, they show you a routine really quick and you got to pick it up like once you get to that level. So that's what she's doing, and everybody else is struggling. Rachel is also there for some strange reason to dance. So she's also struggling. They're all struggling except for Zoe, but then Zoe accidentally falls over because her food is like coated in like, disgusting food, or her shoes are covered in disgusting food. So she like slips. And then Taylor's like, yeah, no, none of you guys can make my dance squad. And so she ends up getting bumped to JV. And all the JV guys are like these like really nerdy guys who I guess just like to dance. Unclear. And none of them can dance though. Like she's the only one that can dance, and her and Rachel are the only girls that are part of it. So she's just like, fine, this is my lot in life. But as she goes home, she sees that the dog Humphrey has torn up her room, literally. And at that point, she's just fed up. So she's like, I'm freaking downloading an app that's going to like tell this dog, to sit, stand up, blah, blah, blah. And so she downloads the app and she tells him, like, sit down, Humphrey, stand up, Humphrey, blah, blah, blah. And Humphrey does everything. And she's like, oh my God, this is great. And but then she accidentally, like, Humphrey knocks it out of her hand, so then her phone goes flying out the window, gets electrocuted, comes back. Then the little brother, Ben, he's like, oh no, I'll help you, I'll like, I'll wrap it in a towel, but then it like comes out of the towel and he accidentally drops it in the bathtub. Which, by the way, he should not have been picking it up out of there because like electricity and water, but anyways, we'll ignore that. And they pick it up and now it's all like electrified, and her mom's like, just put it in rice, like you'll be fine. So the next day, she takes it out of the rice thing, and she sees like it's been like, her phone starts acting weirdly. She says like, oh, sit, stand, and she sees that it's like controlling the mailman outside. So she's like, huh? And then she starts directing it towards her brother because obviously they're already acting crazy the next morning, just how they are. And they start listening to her commands and like doing everything she asks. So everything starts going smoother. They get cleaner. Adam starts slowing down, and she tells Zach to start making healthier food that actually tastes good. And everybody just starts listening to her. So then she decides to use it on the boys in school as well, and she turns the dirty boys into like these super like clean guys who really like dental floss and like mousse in their hair. I don't know how else to describe it, but they're so clean. She turns the farting boys into like respectable young men, I guess. And all the men basically start like shaping up. That's essentially what happens. And she's then elected captain of the JV dance squad because again, she is the only person who can actually dance on the squad. But since it's mostly boys beside her and Rachel, she tells them to get their act together. So they listen to her and they end up becoming really good. So then the principal is like, well, you guys need to have a dance off with the varsity squad because you guys like low key might be better than them and we may need to switch you guys. And Taylor's pissed, of course, because she's like, that doesn't make any sense, but okay. Um, so they plan to dance off for the like big game the next like couple days. But after a while, like the next day, she notices that the men are starting to become, lifeless. Like they don't have free will anymore. So they're just kind of doing things, but their heart's not in it. So she's like trying to work on how do I reverse them out of this spell. Um, and it kind of comes to a head when she like tells Jackson, who she had never used the app on, to like kiss her, and he kisses her on the cheek, and he like feels really weird about it because he like, I didn't want to do that, and now I'm really confused. And she realizes like she like messed up basically. um and then next thing we see is that her and Rachel are like trying to figure out like how are we going to actually like reverse this from the guys, like this isn't a good thing to do anymore, and like I don't feel right about it. And while they're like discussing it, they're in the like bathroom, and she like leaves, or she like Taylor comes in, and like Taylor actually steals her phone, but she doesn't realize it because like when she was doing the dance squad stuff, Taylor and her little friend realized that she kept on barking into her phone to make the guys do things on the JV dance squad. So they're like, something is in her phone that's letting this happen. So Taylor steals her phone, and at first she's just kind of like, okay, well, this is annoying, but like, fine. But then she realizes that her brother Adam is having the big basketball game, and college scouts are going to be there, and he's not going to be able to play to his full potential because she told him to slow down. So she goes to the basketball game and she's like, okay, how am I going to reverse this? Like, what are we going to do? And Taylor is making all the guys do what she wants to do in the meantime, like just basically like act like dogs almost to her. And then she somehow gets Zoe under that spell, which is again still unclear how that happened.
Well, I know. I don't think she's under the spell. I think Zoe's like, I'll
Oh,
do
she's
what
trying to
you tell
like
me to do.
empathize with them, right? Or something.
Yeah, she's like, I'll do what you tell me to do if you give me back my phone. And then she's like,
Right.
oh,
Okay.
sit and roll over. Because she's,
Yeah, so then she basically directs
horrible.
her like a dog, essentially. And she, starts, so Zoe just starts doing all of the stuff that the guys are doing. And then all of the guys like manage to pull themselves out because Zoe keeps saying release, which is like the reverse of it. So they're able to pull themselves out of the loop of just following the commands. So then they all start doing the same thing that Zoe's doing, which is like flip, roll over, all of that. And they basically get her phone back from Taylor, and then Zoe like pushes like crushes it under her feet so that nobody else can use it again, and then like throws it out because she's like, nobody needs this, like this is too much power. Adam and them go on to play the game, and everything is fine. um and after she destroys the phone, we actually see like in the post credits that two teens pick up the phone that are also at the high school when they're cleaning up, and they're like, what is this? So then obviously you can assume like, oh, maybe there's like a second part of things. And that is Zapped.
And with that, we will be right back with the review.
Yes. So to get into the review,
Oh,
I
Zapped.
mean, yes, of
Oh,
Zapped.
Zapped. Yeah, I mean, so I guess my first larger thing with this, like, it falls into that category of one of those like blended family films, you know. Like the premise of it is rooted in essentially like a girl being unable to adjust to or handle her new life, or like the changes in her life that are a direct result of changes in her familial ties, structures, whatever you want to call it. And like, I don't know, it's a trope that is sort of weirdly like age old. And I think that the more and more, we watch society sort of liberate itself from certain preconceived notions of what family means or what family has to mean, the more like important it's going to be to showcase these sorts of things. However, this is not an example of it being done well or interestingly in any way, shape, or form. Um, but yeah, like one of my like larger issues with this was first and foremost like I'm sorry, but if you're gonna like move in with your kid, like if you're gonna marry somebody and like move your kid into a new household or whatever, like you should probably have a very good handle on how that person lives and whether or not it is going to be jarring and traumatic of an like as an adjustment for your child. Because like that is what it seems like the case was. Like they didn't live together beforehand and she only had like so much interest or like she sort of knew that it was going to be like super chaotic and then when it was super chaotic like her mother and her stepfather seemed to have like no interest in like making sure that like she was okay or that like the boys were appropriately adjusting to the fact that yes like they now have a sister who's not like a small child who is a 16-year-old girl and there have to be things actually have to change to accommodate that.
Yeah, and I feel like there is like I know we talked about it because there's like this small scene where before she realizes what she did is wrong, she like talks to Adam basically, and he says, you know, we're also adjusting to having a sister. It's not just you adjusting to having brothers. Um, and I do think that was like an interesting thing just to note because I think obviously we see it from her perspective. And am I mostly more on her side? Yes, because they are literally wild. But I do think it is a good point to just be like, we're also kind of having to figure out like what is it like having a 16-year-old sister who is very clean, grooms, you know, like, you know, does her own thing. But is not somebody that we're used to having around. And do I think that they actually tried to adjust to her? No. But it is just something to bring up where it's like both sides were trying to figure out how do we make this work. Or at least thought about it.
Yeah, but I
But
hate when I
she was at a disadvantage because there's less. Like she's
yeah
only one person versus four guys, and I
yeah
mean, because her mother was barely in this film, so
I was
I
gonna
don't
say she
even.
wasn't very helpful and I
No.
don't know maybe her mother like is the one who has to because I really don't believe that that high school basketball coach could afford that house, but fine.
Yeah,
So
we also
maybe
talked
she
about
has to
that.
like pad, you know, she has to pad that income, so she really just don't have time. But like, but then again, it's also a thing of like, but you wouldn't have to pad any income if it were just you and your child, like it was before. So I mean,
Yeah,
um,
it was definitely one of those things where it's like I agree where I feel like that's and this is harder to do when you have a child and I completely understand that or you have multiple children but like I understand why people move in together because that's literally the point of moving in together is
yeah,
to
it's
get an
like
idea of how does this person actually like live when they're just like in their home habitat and not
yeah,
like trying to put on for somebody coming to visit them.
and
um
it's important to like it is important to get a sense of that before because like it's like there's two sides of it and it's like as you said like I can understand the impulse of like oh like I don't want to like move my kid into somewhere that isn't like permanent, you know, like I don't want to move my kid around, I don't want to put my kid through like the ups and downs of all of that, but at the same time like if you aren't like it's going to be equally problematic potentially more so if a child is put into a situation where they are now stuck and like it's not a good fit. Um, so like, it's complicated, but you know, I had like real issues with like the response when that dog tore apart her room. I was like,
yeah,
I was like, this is not like somebody should have been disciplined. The dog, like if that were like that dog isn't gonna be in the house alone anymore. Like that dog has to stay outside when we're not here. Cause like
right.
that's my kid. Like, and especially if we move into a new space, like it shouldn't be a thing of like telling your like I understand her frustration and maybe why she got to the point where she was like, you know what? Nobody's gonna like look out for me in this situation, so I'm gonna just use this app on these people and treat them like the animals that they are. You know, when we get down to the id, like her impulse to do that when it's like, because you have to think about it this way. It's like if they have moved to this new neighborhood, moved to this new house, that room and the things in that room are probably like everything that that girl has. That is that child's like whole life. You know what I mean? Like those are all of her memories, those are all of her possessions that she's accumulated and has some sense of connection to, like, and she comes home like the first day of leaving those things in that space and they have been like wrecked and destroyed. Um and like there's no, not even justice, but like there's just no like real sort of acknowledgement of that, of the fact that like even if she's like adjusting like the things that she might have had to like stabilize her, um and to like allow her to feel some sort of expression or feel some sort of representation in this new space have now been completely totaled. And it's like
Yeah.
I didn't appreciate her mother's response to that. I was like, you need to do more. Like you need to like, there should have been something where you like, if the little one is the one always training the dog, somebody needs to sit down with Ben and explain like, you should have you should have been like, you know what, we're getting a lock for your door. You know, like there should have been just like more. And I understand that it's a Disney Channel original movie. Like I'm not, but I just think like it irked me that I was like, you're actually watching this kid like not, because I think that there are ways to show a character who feels that they're not being looked after, but show that like maybe they're just reading the situation selfishly, as opposed to what I would say this is where it's like, no, like she didn't seem to be looked out for, like at all. And I think if you want to tell this kind of story well, you need to do the former rather than the latter, because then I just side with you. I'm like, yes, like I'm not mad at you telling those boys to bathe because they should be bathing. Like that's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think it's also like everybody's trying to act like they wouldn't be mad if somebody messed up all their personal effects. And it's like, you would be 100%. Like, it's like, that's just how we work as humans.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like,
That's
you
why
got,
we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. Like that's literally why that exists.
yeah,
Governments
it's just
exist
like,
to
that's
like
like the
save our
number
shit.
one thing. You can't act like you wouldn't care. It's just like her brothers would have cared that Humphrey fucked up their room. Or some other dog that they didn't know completely messed up their room. Like, it's just like, you can't act like this is not a big deal. It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
He's like, why you don't like burglars coming into your house? Like, just say.
It's true.
Not
It's
that he
true.
robbed anything, but he robbed her of her privacy. That's actually what they
Yeah.
were all doing. They were robbing her of her privacy like the entire early part of this film. And
Yeah.
I was like, I would feel so violated and irritated if somebody ever did that to me. And especially if you've been an only child. I say this
Yeah.
as an only child. Like, no. just no. Like that you're literally that is how people end up in therapy 10 years later.
Yeah. And but it's also like, and I just don't understand. Like it's a thing of like there really had to have been a moment where like someone told those like don't touch her things. You cannot be in the bathroom when she's in there. Like she's a teenage. Like you actually can't do that. You have to leave her alone. And if it means that we all have to wake up 20 minutes earlier, then that should have been considered. You know what I mean? Like it's just like
There was
there
no
was no
consideration though. That's like the
none.
overall arching thing is there was no
It's
consideration on the boys' part, like actual
exactly.
consideration.
And so like while I do agree with the fundamental premise of the film, which is like every like no, you should not try to control someone's free will, and no, you should not assume that you know what's best for somebody else. Right? Like don't assume that you, because you know she gets it on one end from like Jackson, who we have issues with, and we can go into that in a bit. But like, you know, she does a thing where she assumes, like, especially kind of like you were saying with that moment with Adam, like she makes this assumption that it would be better for him to slow down. And in that moment where he's saying, you know, in that same moment where he's saying, we're having a hard time adjusting to a sister, or it's, it's an adjustment for us as well. He also talks about his own pressures that he's under, and how like his rushing everywhere is because he actually doesn't have time in the day. It's because he actually like, there are all of these things that he has to do in order to like not in order to live up to expectations and to build the future that others want for him, that he wants for himself. And there's literally just not enough hours in the day, which I'm sure many people like past your teen years can relate to. Like I definitely feel that
Mm-hmm.
regularly. um but like, she makes this assumption that it would be better for him if he slowed down, and the truth is like that's not better for him. This is the way that he can operate, that is going to like produce his own version of success in the future.
Right. Right.
and and maybe, like in the same way, like it would be good for her to chill a little bit, it might be good for him to slow down a little bit, but like you don't get to make that call for somebody else.
Right.
Like you can make suggestions, you can have conversations, you can be there for them and say that you're like willing to like show them how to do something if it's something that they're interested in, but like don't know how to do for themselves. But like you can't, or you shouldn't be making those decisions for them. Like the only person who should ever be making decisions for anybody is like their parent, and even that like mostly stops when you hit like 10.
Um, and I think something else that we had brought up in regards to this one, um, was, I mean, there was just a general lack of home training for all the men that I feel like in this film. And I understood that they needed to do it for the movie's sake, but it just felt like we were saying earlier in regards to how everybody acted when Zoe gets on campus, and that they were like being completely disgusting. And I'm like, do y'all know teenage boys? Like, someone who is objectively gorgeous um walks onto their campus, and the first thing they're going to do is fart on her.
Like that's just like they're not six. Like that's not going to be the response in any way, shape,
That's
or
not going to
form.
be the response at all. Like, I was just like, it doesn't even make sense, like I was just like, this does, yeah, like this, it's just truly nonsensical the way that they had them act. And then, I was just so annoyed that this coach did not teach his children home training, and especially like as a coach. And we were talking about this, is
Yeah.
it was like, it's very odd that like he's like this super like what seems to be like wound up type of basketball coach, but his children like have no sort of routine. There's nobody, um like there's no like hard and fast rules. And I'm like, I don't know, that just doesn't seem to really align with the type of coach that they kind of briefly portray him to be. And
Yeah.
especially the way he wakes them up with that whistle every morning, I was like, this is weird. Like, I don't know who. I think overall though, we were really confused by how they like chose to code a lot of the characters. Like, even her friend Rachel, I was like, why is she wearing Danny DeVito hats? Why is she wearing what she's wearing?
It
Like,
was a
why
it was
would
a
Zoe's
constant
character
source
ever
of
be friends with her, if we're being honest?
anger for me. I did not like how she looked on screen.
Yeah, and I don't know how it was done in the book, because I don't think I don't remember if we were mentioned it, but it's based on a book. And so I don't know if maybe that was how she was defined in the book, and maybe Zoe was supposed to be like a different type of person, but then they chose Zendaya to do it, which cool. And then it just, I don't know, I feel like the dynamics were all kind of messed up. And I know something else that we had talked about in that regard was also how we didn't really like the casting of Jackson Kale, because we felt like they didn't have much chemistry. We actually think her elder brother Adam should have been the heartthrob opposite her instead, because the brief moment where they were like talking one on one to each other, I was like, oh, this seems like this would have worked a lot better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it wasn't the right. I don't think it just feels like a very dissonant film, and a film that didn't understand any of the things that it was attempting to portray. Like even the world of dance. Like it's
Right.
like, and I think you mentioned as you're watching it, Chelsea, you're like, all sports, like the way it works is that like it doesn't matter if people don't really like you. If you're good at the sport, you're gonna be on the team. Like
Right.
that's not like, it's nice when the whole team gets along, and that's why like they put a lot of that on like captains to like, you know not so discord and to make it, an inviting space and all of that. But like, that's like, if you're good, you're good. And
Right.
no one's gonna, like, everyone wants to win. So if you're talented, they want you in that space. And like, and that's like one thing of it. But then the other thing is like the actual world of dance. And it's like, if this girl was like in this, like if she was into dance the way that they're trying to say that she was into dance, and because it wasn't even like her team was going to state, she was like, I was going to state last year. It's
Right.
like, that's like, she wouldn't be bothered. Like if she went and tried out for this dance team and the girl was like, no, she wouldn't be bothered about this like rinky dink. She would probably be in a company or be able to find the company to join, like somewhere around where they live, right? Like, and she would have been doing that for years. For years. Like this wouldn't be something that like is dependent on this girl Taylor. Um like it just wouldn't.
It wouldn't
And
work
I
out like that.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess like I guess it gets into one of those things of like, this is just another example of just like, it's a movie that's thrown together that's like, I don't think that the people creating it knew anything about these things.
Yeah.
Like it feels like,
Hmm.
so it just falls into things that they tropes that they know, or things that they think will be funny, but without any real consideration of like the topics at hand. Um and yeah, and it also like, and in that vein, like because of that, then it gets into a space where it all starts to feel very, like culture vulture-y. Um that's how I feel.
Yeah. No, I agree. It does feel a little weird, and it's like you clearly weren't trying to make an actual like dance movie, but you kind of were. And I'm like, but you've done it much better. Like we've talked about Gotta Kick It Up, like there are actually good dance movies, and it just felt like you wanted something random to put in here. But I'm like, I feel like we could have chose something else. Personally.
Well, I think it's because, isn't like the whole thing like Zendaya was like a dancer, like that was the whole. It's not like part of her shtick, or at least her like child
Yeah,
star
because that's
shtick.
that's what the whole thing of Shake It Up was her being
Yeah.
a dancer. So it's like again, I get it, but it did feel like you should have just made an actual dance movie then, rather than incorporated this other part where she's a dancer who controls boys.
And
Like
it would have made, I feel like, more sense too, because then I would have been like, okay, like if, because you could have set it up where it's like she's in the house and she has her own routines, like she has her own like exercise things in the morning that she does. She has her own like, and their routines conflict with that. You know what I
right,
mean? Like maybe homegirl wakes up in the morning and does her stretches. And like this bullhorn that homeboy uses to wake everybody up is a problem. It's not allowing her to concentrate on what she needs to concentrate on. Like homie's messing with the blender and he's messing it up. So now she can't make the shake that she drinks every morning. Like it just could have been better thought out. And I don't know if that's the fault of the book or the film. It's usually the fault of the film, but you know what I mean. Like it just seems like it's a lot of missed opportunities. It also has the worst film score of any decom I've watched. Like it was bad. Like even when they were dancing, I was like, why are they dancing to this song?
it was.
This don't make
They
no.
also
This song don't
picked like
got no
Zendaya's
bass.
like
What beat
worst
are they
song.
following?
They
I'm
picked
so
her worst song
confused.
to dance to at the end too, which I was annoyed at because I was telling Lisa, Nina that she has a really good song called Replay that came out around this time because Zendaya has a whole album out. I don't know if people know this, but like when she was on Disney, you know how Disney is. They make you act, dance, sing, all of it. So she put out an album and she had a really good song called Replay on it that was cute. They could have danced to that. And then she had a really good song with Mr. Chris Brown, who sure, we could
She
have
has a
taken.
song with
We could
Chris
have.
Brown.
Yes, it's called Something New. It's really
Oh
good
my god!
actually, but I'm like, you could have gotten rid of his part and
I
like
gotta
put
go
it on,
listen
and
to
that would
that.
have actually been a bop because it samples "Creep" by TLC, so it's actually
What
pretty.
is going on?
I'll
I
send
have
it
to
to you.
go.
I'll send it to you
Yeah,
because it's,
send me
it's
that
really good.
link.
But they could have danced to that, even though that might have come out like a year or two later. But still, Replay would have been a good one because I'm pretty sure that came out around 2014. But the one they played, I was like, all right, but like, We could have gotten a better Zendaya song than this. I think something else that we had also talked about in general was just like how a lot of teen movies and then even adult rom-coms do this thing where what happened with her and Jackson Cale, where he like comes up to her and he's like, I know everything about you. I know you stare at your phone screen. I know that you wearing that cute skirt is your way of projecting to the world that you're confident, but you're not really confident. You know, like doing that whole thing and how it's always portrayed as like being something super romantic and that girls should like want. And I just kind of like we both talked about how we both just want that to stop. Um because we tell girls that like that lesson so early on. It starts when you think about I was talking to Nina about like he's not that into you in the beginning where they show like how girls get from like 4 or 5 years old if a boy like is beating you up or if he's pulling your hair, if he's throwing you in the sandbox or pushing sand at you, you know, just like doing something to bother you at a really young age. They're like, oh well, that means he likes you. And it's like, please stop telling that to girls. And please also like tell boys that that's not okay. They should not be hurting anybody, boy or girl, non-binary, you know, whatever. They should not be like putting their hands or bothering anyone. And they if they do actually like a girl at whatever age, like give her a flower. I don't know. Like so, like you can do this in like a non-violent manner. Like I feel like we only teach boys how to like do these types of things in violent manners. And then girls have to are conditioned to accept it because that's what's fed from such a young age.
Or like work around it and like teaching him to be better is part of like the romance of it all. Like, oh, it's not.
Right,
Can you just
exactly.
not
Yeah, that's the whole
abuse me
thing.
from the jump? That would be great. But or like and that goes for everybody because like girls do it too. You know what I mean? Like I think is it in front of me where we watched Homegirl you know, just like manipulate and use all of like the quote unquote nerdy boys. You know, it's just like general like let's just get rid of these things of like suffering through the pain is like love is pain. Like love is pain because there's potential heartbreak, not because of mental and physical violence committed to one another on
Right.
purpose. Like that's not like we should get rid of that as a concept. Like we don't need that in the world. Um but
No,
like
I agree.
yeah, and it's like I just don't like I just really don't like this thing where and we do it with teenage girls especially a lot where teenage girls are sort of not allowed to like even when he says that thing where he's like, "Oh, I know that you stare at your phone all the time." Like teenage girls are criticized for literally everything that they do. If they like to read, like they're too bookish and they're prude and like they're not interested in like being around other people. If they like
Mm-hmm.
to stare, if they like to take pictures with their phone or they're into fashion or they just like being on their phone, oh, they're vapid and they only care about this. Like they only care about surface things and surface interactions. There's no depth to them. You know, like if they get their hair done, then they're vain. If they don't get their hair done, then they're sloppy and they don't care about themselves. It's like we just generally need to like stop like trying to tell girls like how to live their lives and who they are and what's wrong with the things that they like
Gotta bring
because
those
like
change.
we don't you know what I mean like even when we say that like oh a boy's a jock we don't say it's wild that you're a jock and you shouldn't like sports.
Right.
We're just like oh maybe have some more interest but like you know we're not going to stop jock culture
Right.
like so like can we just not do that like and like I have very little interest in like looking at my phone and like taking pictures and things like that but I don't think that anybody should be like the only people who should be allowed to like demonize or tease you at all are like family and like very very close family and even then like it's only up to a certain point. Everybody else like you literally don't know me, you cannot know me, like the hours of my life that I have spent with you are a significantly smaller portion than like I have been living. So like you can't really tell me nothing about myself. Can you please just like not do that? That would be great. If I'm not harming you, like get the fuck out of my face. That's just how I feel.
No, I agree. I think we always definitely put like young women, especially, into a box. And like if you I mean that's the whole thing that High School Musical is essentially about. But yeah, like I feel like we always do that. It's like you have to be this or that, and there's never it's always a catch-22 situation. Like it's never like a complete positive, you know? And we definitely really only do that or we do that aggressively with women,
Yeah.
that in not the same way that we do it to guys. Um, so yeah, I agree. It's like we just need to stop it, especially in the media. Like it's just so unnecessary.
Yeah. And then we
Uh,
get confused about like the deep insecurity that girl like teenage girls tend to develop, like that bleeds into like their young adult years, you know?
mm-hmm.
Then we act like we don't understand why they're insecure. It's like it's because you've literally told them since they were 12 that everything that they're into is a problem.
Right.
Like that's why. Like
That
they
there's
turn
no right way to be them, essentially.
exactly. Um and that the world is very interested in who and what they are. You know what I mean? Like not just that like there's no right way to be you, but like you have to perform for the rest of the world. And if you're performing in a way that the rest of the world doesn't deem okay, you're going to know about it. And it's going to adversely affect you. So, like, yeah, of course, that like they're insecure and are just like maybe emotionally like not in the best of places, but it's not really their faults.
Yeah, it's the larger world around them, as per usual.
As per usual.
As per usual. It's a much larger thing. But yeah, I agree. I'm like, even just on the smaller media side, it's like, can we just get rid of that whole trope of just like you're saying, like just guys telling you, I know you because of this, that, or the other. And it's like, Negro, you don't know me. You just met me
Oh,
5 seconds ago.
exactly. That's
And
literally
like, it's like, who are you,
impossible.
Sherlock Holmes?
And even if you are, I
You
am
still
not a
don't know
mystery to
me.
be solved. Like that's not.
Right. You
Please don't
still don't know
objectify
me.
my mind and my spirit. Thank you.
And none of y'all are as smart as Sherlock Holmes, so don't even try it.
No one. Like shut it on up.
Even if you notice a few things here and there, no, you're not.
Yeah, just
You're not getting there.
So I guess with that, Chelsea, like, would you show this to your kids?
um, mm, like it's all right. I don't think I'd watch it with them if they wanted to watch it. Sure, you know, Zendaya looks good in it. I'll give that to her. Um, it's a very big improvement over Frenemies.
Her hair looks
Um,
so good. I think it
her
was
hair
because it
looks
was
so
her
good.
hair, maybe with some tracks, but
Yeah, I
extension. I
feel
mean
like there's some
extensions,
tracks in
not
it because it's
tracks. Yeah.
mad long. Like, but it maybe not. I don't know. But yeah. So I feel like her hair and her styling was pretty on point the whole time. But yeah, I feel like it's like fine. Sure, you can watch this if you want, but like, I wouldn't watch it with them. What about you?
Yeah, I think I live in the same boat. Like I feel like I mean like it's just like all of the nodes of it, like as a blended family movie. Like how about like you want to just like literally watch anything else about blended families? Like hell, we could watch the Romeo show with that little white boy that they adopt, and it would be a better situation. Like anything else, or like Cousin Skeeter, and you would get more information in that regard. Um, on like the dance part of it, it's like or like the sportsy part of it, like I don't know, like I felt like the dancing in this was kind of like the sun. Like the longer you looked at it, the more it burned. So it's just like you don't need to interact with it much. So that's a no. On like the sci-fi like sci-fi aspect of it, the change somebody to make them more acceptable and then realize that like even a benevolent dictator is still a dictator and free will is important bit, like there's a bunch of movies like we could watch Cruel Intentions. I mean, actually maybe we can't, you're probably too young for Cruel Intentions, but we could watch but we could watch like She's All That. Like there are other things that we can watch where you can get that same lesson and it's fine. So like no, I don't think I'd ban it in my house. There's no like reason to ban it. But like I just can't, like they would literally have had to go and find it on their own. And I think even in that like going and finding on their own, like it's not like one of those like super advertised Disney Channel original movies on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So they would have to, I don't know, just maybe be like really into Zendaya. Which I don't know if by the time I have kids, like that's the thing that's gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, her like child actress to adult actress is almost complete. Like
Yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
by
Like
that
I
point
don't
it's
go
going to be
into
like, wait,
deep
she was in
dives.
Disney? Like
Yeah, like I'm not going into deep dives of like I wasn't like, oh, I really want to watch 21 Jump Street because of like Johnny Depp. Like that didn't happen.
yeah,
You
right.
know, in my coming up. So I don't think that they will be like, oh, I really want to watch like young Zendaya. So I just don't I can't imagine how they're gonna find it. But if they find it, knock yourself out. Like I don't care. But I just highly doubt that it will be something that they see. And I'm definitely not looking for input on for them. A solid mediocre film.
Yeah. No, I agree. I completely agree with that. You know, we also, if you haven't seen it, I don't think we recommend this one, honestly.
No, no, no.
I wouldn't say bother with it on it. Like, just go watch something else that she's done more recently, like Euphoria, please.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
Casey Undercover if you want a Disney.
Casey Undercover's
If you
cute.
want her in Disney, like Casey
Yeah,
Undercover
Casey
is pretty good.
Undercover's cute. It's cute. It's got pluses. I haven't seen Shake It Up, so I can't
Same here. I
speak
haven't
on
seen
that.
it either. But yeah. So I think with that, we will talk to you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of The Critics Kingdom. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify and SoundCloud so you can stay up to date, as well as interacting and letting us know what you guys think on social media. You can find us on Twitter at Critics Kingdom and on Instagram at The Critics Kingdom. We're excited to talk to you again next week.